wait. And baby, I'm TFC till I die.
Hello and welcome back to Toronto Till I Die, the Toronto FC fan show. I'm Mike Newell, and the Vibes Month continues here at TTID, just like Josie and the boys in that video at the beginning of the show. Everybody's hugging, they're jumping up and down. We're winning again, it feels good. And they're starting to bury the past, this TFC team, with a gutsy, grinded out win in the 2024 home opener. We are going to spend time, obviously, talking about that win over Charlotte FC. We will also continue to talk about our player over-unders, getting some more data, as we said last week. And of course, we'll go into Herd's the Word and get your responses to the burning question. Like Lorenzo Insigne and John Herd jumping into John Herdman's arms, we've got so much to get into this week with my co-hosts, Michael Singh and Jeffrey P. Nesker. Gents, how we doing?
Vibes. Yep, absolutely. It's vibes time.
We're cutting that clip and making that, I think, our new theme song and our new intro. Right. Whenever something good happens, that's a little stinger you can roll. Jeff singing vibes.
Practice.
But no, man.
Should have practiced that's first. It. Damn, I should have gargled with some.
You didn't hit that note?
Because no, didn't hit my note. Yeah, it's not the audition I want to be remembered for. So yeah.
Man, honestly, it was so nice to be back at BMO Field yesterday. It's been a long time since BMO Field felt like that, where there was positivity flowing around. I remember going to games last season and so much negative chatter about this team, and deservedly so. I mean, the team hasn't shied away from that, this season, that, they deserved a lot of the criticism that they got. But, this season, it does really feel like a bit of a renewed energy due to the way that they started the campaign. And, when that Insigne goal went in, and we'll get into it a little bit more, BMO Field erupted in a fashion it hasn't erupted in a very, very long time. So yeah, that was a special day at BMO Field, I think, looking back on it, given everything that kind of transpired. And I can't tell you, man, on a bit of a side note, the amount of people that, come up to us at the stadium and mention the pod and mention, listening to us on a weekly basis. One, I pity you, and that you have to kind of go through that and do listen to us every single week. But two, it's it's super cool interacting with you guys and meeting with you guys. So if you ever see one of us at the stadium, don't be shy. Shout out Charles, who came up, big fan, and everyone else who we get to run into. So super special being back in that atmosphere. It really is a unique family there.
Well said, Mikey. It was wonderful. It was so good to be back. It really, really was. And to be treated to that kind of a gutsy win, I mean, all signs point to awesome. What can you say? But I gotta wonder, was the applause for Lorenzo's goal about as loud as the applause for Matty Longstaff getting subbed in? Because that was pretty wild. Like, do they still think he's Sean Longstaff, or like what happened?
Were you booing, Jeff?
Yeah, no, I wasn't booing. I wasn't booing. I had to tweet out my screw this club for taking minutes away from my Alonso, and then dude almost scores on his first touch, and I had to eat even more humble pie. So yeah.
Mm. Yeah, no, it's it's crazy. Like, you're right. Like, I thought he'd get a nice little hand, obviously, when he came on. I didn't think that, like, there were people in like 116 getting into
losing their minds.
Like, they were really, I was really surprised, which is a pleasant surprise, right? Like, obviously, people looking forward to a guy who played in the Premier League, even if it was for a cup of tea, essentially. Which is kind of cool. But I mean, look, we'll get into it. I think, Jeff, I saw you, obviously you sit in my section a little higher up. I think just from like even like a supporter group perspective, I think just the vibe was a lot better. I think people were really pulling for the team and the players. And this is something that we've said on this show last year many of times. Many of you who are watching right now or listening on the podcast version said as well. You just want a team that looked like they gave a shit, right? Like you wanted a team that looked like they were going to fight and try to give their all. And sometimes the results doesn't go your way, but you're okay with that kind of effort. And you're seeing a team that's doing that now. And I think the fans can get behind that, right? That's the first starting point to get behind people. Then, of course, the results happen, and of course, you get a wonder goal from Lorenzo Insigne, and that just right, that just changes, that just elevates the whole experience. So, lots to get into in terms of the game day itself. But Gents, a 1-0 win over Charlotte FC Saturday at BMO Field. A game that, just from my point of view, it looks like TFC, were really starting to try to impose themselves in terms of what we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. Started out with a false 9, which was maybe a bit of a surprise. Obviously, no Sean Johnson to start in goal. A little bit of a surprise. Yeah, a little bit of a surprise there. But overall, I think, although we'll have some critiques about the offensive display, obviously, I think overall this is obviously probably the best overall performance that we've seen from TFC. Wanted to get your guys' take on that.
Yeah, it was different. It was, a home performance, right? Playing against a very stingy Charlotte team who we know was going to be athletic, was going to be kind of up for the battle versus, teams like New England who rely on Carlos Gil, or FC Cincinnati who rely on Lucho Acosta to be difference makers for them. This was a collective, unified Charlotte team that really looked at TFC on the counter, and I got to say TFC didn't really give them any of that. There was the one chance by Enzo Capetti, turned aside by Luca Gavrin, who, by the way, shout out, first start of the season, did all the right things, was big, imposing, collected the ball really well. And of course, that save on Enzo Capote, which really could have shifted the tie in a really
100%. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Charlotte scores one of those goals. They bunker in the way that Charlotte can, and all of a sudden we're talking about a different fixture. So Luca Gavrin was massive for TFC, called upon in a bit of short notice, as we learned. Sean Johnson had a little bit of an injury Friday during training, heading into Saturday. He was being evaluated still. So, Luca Gavrin to be able to step in like that, a massive, massive performance by him. And, just as a big picture, it can't be overstated. This team's performance for the first 3 games, the results, second best start in Toronto FC history, 2 wins, 1 draw, still unbeaten. And then even more important, 3 clean sheets for Toronto FC to start this season, a foreign language for this club, 2 years ago where they were struggling to get a single clean sheet, but to do so with, Sigurd Rosted coming in at halftime, like I said, Luca Gavrin subbing in for Sean Johnson. It really is a system that they are, that they're implementing here. And man, you can't really argue about what you see here. They're doing well defensively. Now the next step is obviously going to be figuring out that offense, but one step at a time. It's a positive.
Yeah, it feels like a targeted checklist, right? Like almost the same way that, Bob Bradley was when he came and shore up the defense. We leaked 66 goals and then concentrate on this. Did you all see the tweet? I think it was G Money that put it out there that they inferred that Herdman's game plan was to just tire out Charlotte in the first half, and that's why they had a false 9. It wasn't really about the attack as so much, just tiring them the hell out and then maybe going for the 1-0 win, or do you think that's hindsight is always 2020?
I don't think so. I think if you play a false 9, the idea is that you're trying to, you're hanging on to the ball, you're trying to connect with your best players, right? And your 3 best players arguably are up top with Osorio, Insigne, and Bernardeschi, right, coming down the wing. So from that perspective, I think you're trying to spark something a little bit different. Maybe trying to draw the center backs out a little bit more to cover Oso if he drops deep and allow those players to take in that space. Didn't quite work. Oso's just not a forward player like that. He's not going to necessarily hold up the ball like that. He's not necessarily,
Mhm.
I think he tried his best. I think at times when he's trying to hit those triggers to press and things like that, when the Charlotte center backs have the ball, was a little not quite all there. So I get the idea behind that. It
Mhm.
also speaks to the fact that your number nines aren't quite firing right now. Now, I will say that once Prince Osu came on, the game changed,
Best I've seen him. Best I've seen
right?
him. I appreciate you
So,
saying that. Yeah.
so from that perspective, you mentioned that it was just an interesting choice, and I think this mainly had to do with just the way that Charlotte is. Like I think I mentioned to somebody in the stands, like Charlotte's a
Mhm.
big team. Like it's
Yeah.
a tall team. They were winning some of the set pieces early on in the game, and causing a little bit of problem there. So I think there was a little bit of trying to mitigate a little bit of that physicality from Charlotte in that using that false nine,
Yeah.
but in the end of the day,
Yeah.
it does speak to what we've been saying for a couple of weeks, right? Get a nine in this team, and you may start creating a lot more chances and potting a lot more of those chances. Because again, like I said, when Osu came on, the game just changed.
Yeah,
When Prince came on, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, my comment against the G Money tweet was, I don't think the plan was to keep Lorenzo on for almost the full 90 minutes. When did he sub out?
like
Like 80 minutes,
86.
80 something, or I don't. So I
I
don't
think he
see
tightened
that
up,
game
by the
plan.
way. I think I saw him
Oh
holding
no.
his leg or something.
Mm.
But we'll see. I mean, it could just be something super minor because he did play through it a little bit, but
It might be
definitely
his celly, jump into Herdman's lap and then
Yeah.
yeah,
and then
maybe he
pull the
celebrated too hard.
the Granite Xhaka again. Yeah. No.
Something to monitor. But we've seen guys go down and still have other players step up. So Richie Laryea, once again, not able to start for Toronto
Hmm.
FC. And then all of a sudden you see Kobe Franklin slot in. Maybe not the same kind of offensive impact, but still a very valuable player. I mean, Kobe Franklin was a guy who was a starter for Toronto FC, one of their most consistent and
Yep.
arguably best players throughout the course of last season. And he's now another depth piece for this team. So when you look at the way that John Herdman has been able to get the best out of a lot of pieces on this roster through 3 games. I have to emphasize it's just through 3 games.
Hmm.
He's doing a really good job of that. So the guys who were, starters last year are playing like starters, and guys who maybe should have been more depth pieces are now coming in with that season under their belt last year to be impact pieces when other guys aren't available. So Luca Gavrin, once again, the Kobe Frankins of the world. We'll see what happens with Raul Petretta, right? Is he
Hmm.
going to be able to displace Nixon Gomes, who is
Yeah.
looking more and more solid? With every minute, seems like he gets under his belt. He was huge for this team defensively, and
Yeah.
even when he
Well,
was
he's
pushed
huge.
forward,
Full
I thought
stop.
he,
He's huge. He's a
yeah,
unit, that guy. Man.
100%, big time.
Mhm.
But yeah, physically imposing, comfortable, pushing forward when he needs to. I think we saw a little bit more of that offensive flair in flashes that John Herman was talking about. Yeah, I liked a lot of things that I saw from him, but not to get too sidetracked. Circling back to the team as a whole. The one thing, as kind of Mike you touched on off the top, that really resonated, I think, was just the work rate and
Yeah.
work level, effort level of this group, and starting with the DPs once again, right? I think effort level was there. Federico
Mhm.
Bernardeschi, we haven't really talked about him at all, but for me, he was close to the man of the match. I mean, he was involved in
Most of everything,
six
yeah.
16 ground duels technically, and the next closest player on Toronto FC was 9, and that was Davy Flores in the middle of the park. So Federico Bernardeschi was involved in every bit of action for TFC.
Yeah.
Times he gave away the ball maybe a bit too cheaply, but you know the one thing you want to ask out of these DPs is that they work their tails off and they set the tone for this team, and that's exactly what they're doing through
Mhm.
these first 3 matches. So yeah,
50
Federico
appearances
Bernardeschi.
too. Can you
Yeah,
believe it? That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. No
That came
competitions.
up fast. Yeah. That came
Yeah.
up
yeah,
real fast.
and
And it's funny, Mike, you just mentioned that, Bernardeschi and the fact that he's giving that effort, but he also is then putting in the quality as well, right? That's the two are starting to marry each other a little bit. Obviously, it was online. I think Matt Doyle actually tweeted out the
That
ball he made
pass.
to Lorenzo
Oh
Insigne
my
outside
outside
of
of the
the
foot.
God.
foot. you
Yeah,
took
and
out essentially two lines, right? Essentially to get
it
that
would
ball
have
into
been
the
a
box.
goal if Prince hadn't stopped his run. I mean, he was right there. Like that ball was basically tailor made for him, and he hesitated. So, but yeah, what a pass! What a pass! What an unbelievable bit of
I
skill that
think
was.
let's talk a little bit about Federico Bernardeschi at wingback in
Mhm.
general. I don't think we've made enough about that shift over to wingback. We've touched on it in
Mhm.
past weeks, but this is a position that is probably better suited for Bernardeschi because of the work rate that we talk about. I mean, he's never shied away, even last couple of seasons. He's never shied away from being the guy who runs the most on the pitch and being the guy to uh, like I said, just set the tone when it comes to work rate and effort level with this team. So now you kind of translate that away from him being isolated on the right side of the pitch by himself, trying to take guys on 1v1 or 1v1, 1v2, 1v3 at times, and more so take that effort and put it into more of a two-way game. And,
Mhm.
credit to John Herdman for identifying that, but also credit to Federico Bernardeschi for buying in and embracing that role for TFC. It's easy to come in with that DP label, a guy from Juventus, a guy who's won a Champions League, who's won a penalty, and the lead
Mhm.
up to winning a Champions League final, um, and almost taking down your ego a little bit, where you don't have to be the guy that scores goals or be the guy that creates everything for this team, right? He's
Mhm.
now embracing the role of being that two-way player, and if you're going to get the best out of Federico Bernardeschi, that might just be the best way to do so. So, yeah, through 3 games, he's shown promise defensively as well, and attacking wise, again, you take that pressure off him a little bit. TFC still have to find solutions out there, so I'm getting ahead of myself. So maybe there's a way that TFC bring in more of an attacking minded winger to help
Mhm.
create some more offense if you have Bernardeschi bought into more of a wingback position.
Well, isn't it funny that controversy is not really the right word, but the talking point that what John Herdman at the national team was, should you play Alfonso Davies on the right as a wing back or as a winger, right? And now you kind of have the similar trait here with Federico Bernardeschi, but I can actually see more of a wing back role for him because it does allow him to run onto the ball a
Yeah,
lot easier than
get his
getting
head
from
down and get up to full
from a
clip.
stopped position
Yeah.
where he then has to
Mhm.
try to beat, like you said, two or three guys. It seems a lot more comfortable, both from a defensive perspective, but also going forward as well.
If I could,
Yeah, go ahead.
if I could just take a second, our viewership, by the way, is on fire
Is
right now.
on. It's craziness. Are you
So
watching it climb? It's
i-
stupid.
if I could just ask anybody who's new to our channel, hit that subscribe button, show us some
Yeah,
love.
good
We do
call.
this every single week. We also do this as a podcast too, so make sure you guys check us out if you're not able to catch the entire episode. Well, listen to us on the go. Anyways,
Anyway,
back to TFC talk.
what the hell was I going to say? I feel for Shane O'Neill though, because as much as Berna is tracking back and as much as he is like an Energizer Bunny, he's still a defensive liability at wing back, and he's putting a lot on Shane O'Neill's plate. Shane O'Neill's been able to handle it, but it certainly creates a need for more depth at that right center back position. Although I have to say, I was pretty impressed with Sigurd Rosted when he came on and deputized for Kevin Long. And I didn't think that would be the case. I mean, I don't think he's in any way, shape, and form the kind of player that can be the middle center back in a back three. He deputized pretty admirably. So that was a surprise.
Yeah, but I think and I'm noticing this with the John Herbert team. It looks like everybody's coming out with clear roles and instructions
Assignments,
of
yeah,
what to
yeah.
do and assignments what to do. So when you give that to somebody like Sigurd Rosted, I could see him being more aggressive in the way that he would go in and tackle and not be afraid to maybe draw a foul, right? Like he was going in and winning the ball off players. And Mike, you said it last year that you thought Sigurd Rosted was a better passer than probably Jeff and I were giving him credit for. And you saw a bit of that on Saturday, right? Like in terms of his ability to move the ball. And again, it's an interesting thing where you change a coach or you change a coaching staff or even the messaging that you give players, and you
100%.
unlock an extra 20 30% out of a player that you just weren't getting last year, and you see better versions of these guys with better instruction and better overall tactical planning.
And it's the
strange. Oh,
toughest.
go ahead.
It's the toughest position in soccer to come in, actually. A center back mid game, and not
Oh
only
yeah,
that, he came in as the central center back mid game, and not only that, he's played maybe 5
5 minutes.
minutes
Yeah.
before
5 minutes
this.
at best.
So for him to come in for Kevin Long, who was feeling a little bit of tightness, for him to come on and have that performance, he had a massive tackle towards the end of the game where he stepped up at the perfect time,
Yep.
win the ball back in an important position for TFC, and like you said, Mike, kind of controlled the game from that central center back position. I thought an outstanding performance. I said in a past episode that TFC didn't have a guy who could play central center back aside from Kevin Long. Sigurd Rosas showed glimpses that he's capable of being a reliable option there. Maybe not a starting option, but a reliable option if you get put in a bind with Kevin Long and his fitness down the stretch.
So we're going to have to update our
100%.
over-under on Sigurd Rosas.
Well, I mean, listen, it also can't be denied that having a black hole that sucks in all attacks by the name of Davy Flores really helps with that central center back. Yeah, he is just so damned important to what this team is doing right now, and it just happened so quickly. It's delightful to see, but he really does give everybody else confidence to try things that they necessarily wouldn't have tried before, because he's so steady. He's unreal. He's a pleasure to watch. I mean, friend of the show, Alan Gorman, and his son were at the game, and they were laughing their asses off because, Flores constantly loses the ball, but then he gets it back again. So it doesn't really matter. It's just this like
it's like he's Dennis Rodman of MLS. He's just padding his stats.
Yeah,
is
exactly.
He the biggest difference to this Toronto FC team? Would you say Davy Flores is?
No, I think the overall redemption arc is a big difference. You felt it at BMO. People don't want to be sad anymore. I mean, I don't want to be sad anymore. Right? Like you felt it walking into that stadium saying hello to people you haven't seen in a while. It was like, let's not do this again. Is it sustainable? Who cares? Are we running into a brick wall? Who cares? We've got at least a wisp of our team back. Let's roll. Let's ride. We ride. And I think that, I was arguing about this at the end of last season. The team needs a reset. They need to hit the reset button. There's not much that's going to happen without that pause. I think they've all had that pause. They've hit the reset button. They're coming in, and now the sort of that steamroller of vibes. And I mean, I can't say vibes more enough, but like we're on a downward mountain, collecting more vibes as we go. And yeah, we can ask questions about its sustainability. I've starred about 1,000 of them, and I'm never going to get to from the chat. But we ride. To answer your question, I think Flores is very, very important. Very, very important.
Yeah, I'll answer that question by
but not the be all and end all.
Fair. I think he's a massive part of the change. I think not because of necessarily being the best player on the pitch, but the attitude, the ability to go in, to snap in the shackles, to close down quickly, like the way he closes down players. We just haven't had a player who could do that in a really long time, right? Like just go in and get into people's faces. Even like, there were times on Saturday where he left a foot in probably maybe 2 seconds after the ball was released. And sometimes the referee caught him and sometimes the referee didn't. But you kind of are okay with that, right? You want a guy who will get into people's faces and be a little nasty. And then it's getting other players to do the same. Like Quajo, I don't know if you really felt like Quajo could be that kind of player last year. Now he's snapping in the tackles. Kosi Thompson, they're trying to get Kosi to be that kind of player and get that out of him. Yeah. And you kind of saw that at the end of the New England game to varying degrees of success. But, if you can get more players on that kind of level, right? Like then you've got it. Then you've got something. 100% agree with a lot of listeners who are saying, is this sustainable? In terms of, can you just keep grinding out results and waiting for moments of magic? Probably not, but you'll keep yourself in a lot more games if
you'll be in the hunt. if this is the ceiling, we're in the hunt, right? Like, let's not mince words. So sustainable. I think in the same way as ego and hubris made last year so miserable, I think ego and hubris will make it that we're never going to hit that level this year. There's too many players with too much to lose to allow it. And it starts with Oso. I think it permeates to John Herdman and his staff. I think we've built something here. There's a pride now, not just in so, and that is such a motivator, proving your naysayers wrong. It's the reason we have a star on our crest.
But it's the 3 games too. I can't emphasize that enough. Like these 3 games, the start of the season, it's kind of cliche to say how important the start of a season is. This one it's not cliche at all. It was so important for this team to get off to a start like this, and now you've established that mindset, that culture, and when you see the results, it's easier to get people to believe in it. So, as you guys are saying there, and I asked the question about Davy Flores, I wrote down a couple of things that have shifted this year. So,
let's go.
Jeff, you touched on it, the buy-in from DPs, right? I think that's a massive one. The formation change from John Herdman, that can't be overstated. Shifting to a back 3 in Major League Soccer, they did a lot of research beforehand and figuring out what works. It's something he's talked about extensively, particularly taking away opposing DPs who are primarily attacking players and kind of leveling the playing field a little bit. Again, can't be overstated. It's moves like that has got the best out of a guy like Shane O'Neill, Nixon Gomez, and also Kevin Long, who they identified and brought in. So, hat off to their recruitment team along with Davy Flores, 2 really important guys in the heart of the park who have improved this lineup in a significant way. Again, same thing. Raul Petretta looks revolutionized in this system.
Yep.
And then for me, that's one of the things I really underline here. I know we talked a little bit about, Richie Lorea being unavailable and maybe, Sean Johnson a little bit. This team's DPs are, knock on wood, they're available for Toronto FC, right?
Yep.
If you remember
3
last
consecutive
year,
games together, when does that happen?
Well, that's it. If you remember last year, how this season started, TFC were in every single game, I think, to start last year.
Yeah.
Right. They just didn't have that extra push offensively. And Lorenzo Insigne was out for the first 4.5 weeks to start the year. He's played, maybe a half, maybe less than a half in DC United, and then came off injured. And the result of that was, 4 or 5 weeks of him being sidelined. And I can't tell you what that does to this team. As I said in the past, this team lives and dies by the Italians, especially offensively. So to have Lorenzo Insigne available, to have Federico Bernardeschi available, it's a different team when those guys are in and they're bought in. So, in all of this, we've seen John Herdman talk about load management. All of those things, the one common principle is John Herdman. Right. We can't shy away from that at all. John Herdman has been the guy and probably the biggest reason that this team has started to turn things around and look the way that they look.
And that's why I said when the hiring, I had my questions, I had some of my doubts about the club experience, stuff like that. But at the same time, I've learned not to bet against him.
I don't want to, because it's so much fun to be proven wrong almost every damn time by this guy. Hey, we're going to go to the World Cup. What are you, crazy? What, like, have you seen our team? And then here we are. Like, you underestimate John Herdman at your own peril. This guy is the culture whisperer. We've sort of I mean, my guest ran back from the washroom 3 times, and I was like, just go live there because Lorenzo scored a worldie and you can't come back to your seat now. But
can we talk about that?
We will. Oh, in a second,
we will. I'm getting there because as good as that goal was, the best part of that game was the celly, was watching Lorenzo run like a madman and jump into John Herdman's arms. Okay. I mean, that was like, it brought a tear to my eye. I mean, like, are we back? Who cares? That was effing amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
And completely unexpected. And we'll get to it. I think all of our quotes for "Herd is the word" revolve around the shenanigans there. But wow.
Yeah, let's talk about the goal because 80th minute, it comes from, a classic kind of Lorenzo Insigne goal. We've seen it a lot. You know, it was
Mhm.
on the highlight packs when he signed. We've seen the Serie A games. We've seen Napoli
It
games.
has
We've
its
seen him
own
score
name.
that goal. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. Right. So, I more than the technique. I'm not the footballer of that caliber. I can't speak about technique, but I want to more talk about where your vantage point, the two of you, were in the stadium. I'll talk about mine too, but
I mean, mine and yours are the same. So
well, pretty much. But like Mike, like
yeah.
in terms of where you were in the stadium, where you were watching the game, what was
Yeah.
sort of your vantage point of it? Because you probably had a very beautiful vantage point, probably from behind.
It was gorgeous. I was on the side, so I'm in 105. So towards the other end of the stadium on the side. And from where I saw, I could see the ball bend and see the perfect kind of curve as it curved, as it left his foot, you could kind of see it start to bend in. And then, nothing gets me fired up more than a ball that, goes bar down and hits the crossbar in
Oh
in
yeah.
footy, especially a curler like that. That's, Insigne's bread and butter. So yeah, the shot was something else remarkable. Moment of brilliance once again in back-to-back games from Lorenzo Insigne. This is what TFC again. This is what they were buying when they
Yeah.
got Lorenzo Insigne.
Hmm.
Now, I
Yep.
think let's temper expectations. We're not going to see screamers like this game after game, but there was a run in 2022 when he first came over where he had about 3-4 games in a row where he was scoring goals like these long range shots. So now that he's got the confidence back, that the hope is that he can continue to find space on the pitch and time on the pitch to get some of these shots off. The reality is, and not to dampen the mood at all, but TFC and Lorenzo Insigne specifically didn't really have much going up to that point,
No, it was
right?
came out of nowhere, just like the New England came out of
They
nowhere.
were they were kind of stifled by Charlotte through the majority of this match. Bernadeschi had a half chance, and really, I think that's about it, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, their XG in this game was
Yeah, we were
0.54.
outperformed by XG again in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that
So
all the Charlotte fans are arguing that against the Lorenzo goal, and it's like, no, have you don't give him space to cut in from the left. Like, what are you crazy? I don't care about stats. You don't give of all the players in MLS, the one guy that you don't give space to get off a shot on his right foot cutting in from the left is Lorenzo Insigne. Anyway, continue, Mikey.
no, that was pretty much the gist of it. It's just I
Mm.
don't know if that is sustainable, as you kind of people in the chat are asking. Mike, you're asking. I don't know if that's sustainable, but the defense, everything else up to that point is sustainable. It's now just again that next step of how
Yeah.
the heck is this team going to consistently create chances, and that's been a challenge for the last 2 years.
Yeah, yeah. What was I going to say? It's making me reconsider my idea that MLS um, is not a league where DP difference makers get to do things and carry their team. And it's also reminding me of Ariane Robin, who I've always loved, and who is very similar on the opposite side, right? Like you can gain. Ariane Robin had one major move, and everybody knew it, and everybody tried to game plan against it. It didn't matter one iota. You were still peeling the ball out of the back of the net. Um, you know, who's to say it's not sustainable? Realistically, I mean, when you have a player of that quality, I don't want to quote Herdman verbatim, but what was one of his quotes where he said the difference is that we have Lorenzo Insigne and they don't. I thought that was a really intelligent bit of wordplay there, and there's a truth to it. Sometimes you need your big ticket signings to produce a moment of magic to break open games because we exist in parity league alpha, and sometimes you need your special players to do special things. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
But it's
100%.
not every time. That's the
Yeah, no,
difference,
it's
right?
not every time.
Sometimes,
Mm,
yes, you do need
But
that.
yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
Jeff is onto something a little bit here. Like there are teams in MLS historically who have kind of rode that wave for a season, right? And get themselves into a playoff position and surprise, the pundits, right? In terms of you start squeaking out 1-0 wins, 2-1 wins, things like that, because you get moments of magic. And that's why DPs exist in this league, right? They are supposed to create moments of magic when nothing seems to be going right or going well attacking wise. So, from my perspective on that goal, I mean, I'm in row 4 and 116. That thing essentially is coming right at me, which is nuts. But like you see it, and he cuts in, and he's gonna hit it. He's gonna hit it. The question is, can he just keep it down? Right. That's really it. And once we hit it, we just knew, because the way it was hit, it just dipped. And once you saw the little dip, it was gonna go under the bar, and you knew it was in.
Oh yeah.
So it was one of those things where everybody kind of, you know what that goal reminded me of in terms of a reaction was Pozuelo's first night at TFC with the chip goal over Sean Johnson. Funny enough, the reaction that night is the same reaction people gave of the Insigne goal of, oh, what did I just see? I just saw class of another level that you just don't see every day in MLS.
I almost got hit by Davy Flores' shot. That one that sailed right over the net into the stands. That one was pretty close to my head, fellas. But
that was something.
No,
Fernando brings
right
up a good point. Like what needs to be sustainable is a discipline, the tactical order, and defensive focus. And then he goes on to say, then your quality players will make things happen, as Insigne is doing.
Exactly.
So
100%.
One of the reasons why they brought in Davy Flores was for exactly what Fernando's saying there. So very, very smart comment was that you shore up this team behind these guys, and then they'll be able to take risks a little bit more and go for moments like this a little bit more.
But that's MLS.
Your offensive and DP players have to do a little bit more. But it's not just Davy Flores. It really is a team behind them. Now, again, what TFC is doing, I'll stress this enough. They're not doing enough offensively, right? They're not creating enough scoring chances. They're not big enough threat. Doing this over and over and over again, it's not going to happen. No matter which league you play in. This is not Lorenzo Insigne bailing out TFC to win 1-0 games is not going to happen.
No, they need someone else to step up. They will need someone else to step up.
Who?
Well, you would hope it's Federico Bernardeschi. But I mean, at this point, right? Because we still have yet to see healthy DeAndre Kerr, so that will be the question.
That's a good show.
But it's not you're 100% right. You cannot win like this every week in the league. You just can't.
Watch them win like this every week.
You just kind of alluded to it, Jeff, right?
Yeah.
Again, I will point to the 16 Colorado Rapids.
People are calling this 2019 TFC start in the chat. I didn't want to highlight
that's a decent shout. That's a decent shout.
But 2019 went 3-0. This team's 2-0-1. So yeah.
So a decent shout. But I'll take sort of the 16 Rapids that kind of came out of nowhere, won a bunch of 1-0 games, and then won the West, right? And we're a penalty kick away from getting to an MLS Cup. Now, the thing about that team was, and Mike, you hit it perfectly, tactically disciplined, really well built behind, and then they had a DP striker in Jossie Zardes who just put the ball in the net, right? Like, that is the way. Now, you can't sustain, because the next year they almost went to the bottom of the league. So you can't sustain that long term. But you can grind out results and get yourself in a good spot. And then who knows, once the window opens, if you can get a player that can make, or two maybe, that can make a really big difference offensively.
The difference is that Lorenzo Insigne is not necessarily a goal scorer.
True.
Right? Nope. You need someone on the other end to kind of finish off chances when Lorenzo Insigne does create. Insigne could be good for 13, 14, 15 goals this year if he keeps, performing like this. However, that's not enough. Who's going to score the other, 50 goals that you need to average 2 goals a game in this league? And that should be kind of the mark that you go for, at least 2 goals a game. And chopping up, pointing this out, we also didn't have Richie Laryea in there, who does create a lot of offense for this team.
Yep.
He really is a bit of an X factor for this group. If,
100%.
Richie can refine that form, he was, we'll get to that in the over-unders. But if he can refine this form, and if he can, be utilized in a similar way he was utilized against Cincinnati, where he's played higher up the pitch, gave them something vertical, which they don't have, a guy who can run through lines, be a threat in behind. Insigne and Bernadeschi, they're not threats in behind anymore, right? I took a couple of casual friends, very casual, I'd call them, to the TFC game. They know enough to know who Insigne is and whatnot. And the thing they said over and over during that game is, Insigne is really slow now. Eh? Like
Oh
he's
yeah,
not a fast guy.
no
And
pace.
like, yeah, you're right. So for them, it was a bit underwhelming until that moment of brilliance. But you miss all the stuff he does in between lines and all the
Mhm.
connections and the passes that he sees versus other players. But they don't have that guy to go to get in behind and be constant threat at goal. So something Richie could address. And again, I still think it's something really big that this team needs to address.
Yeah.
Do you have any faith in the strike core figuring it out? Did you
It's a good
see?
question.
I'm
Did you
high on
see?
DeAndre
I
Carr.
saw. Well, yeah, so am I. So am I. But I mean the existing one, not injured
Yeah,
FC.
fair.
Like I saw bits out of Prince in his cameo that were encouraging, but I also, like I mentioned, giving up on that run on Fede's pass was kind of unforgivable. What are your gents' thoughts? Like, do you think Prince deserves some more reps?
I believe the sort of talking points on him, that is like there's a lot of good starting points for him, but it's not quite. I feel like he's still struggling to figure out how to play with Insigne and Bernadeschi up top in terms of how they move and how they use the ball. Because he, like I think I said this last week, like he makes
Mhm.
certain runs that probably a traditional winger will probably play the ball in behind or try to play to him. They won't play those balls, right?
Yeah.
And that throws him
Oh,
off.
that's so. Yeah, that I mean, he's never. Let's call a spade a spade. I don't think in his career he's ever played with wingers
No.
as elite as our two DPs. Do you have faith that he can figure it out? Does he have the tool set to figure it out?
As the president of the Prince Owosu fan club, uh, yes, he
Okay.
will figure it out. Is he going to be this team solution at number 9? I have a feeling that they go out and invest more so in more credible number 9, more established number 9. However, what you saw on Saturday was a perfect example of very much a role that a guy like Prince can play, right? He's a guy who come in the 65th minute of a game, hold the ball up, be physical. He's the type of striker that when you have a 1-0 lead, you want to bring on. He's the type of striker when maybe you're trailing or the game's still tied 0-0. He can change that dynamic of your number 9 profile up top. So I think there's, like you guys said, there's a lot of good starting points. Still very new to MLS as a whole, and I don't know. I feel like there's something more there that you got to tap into for Prince. But yeah, he looks like a guy who's up to the fight every time. It's just more so piecing it together, in between Insigne and Bernadeschi,
Fair.
which is not at all an easy
I
easy
heard
challenge.
I heard in the stands when he came on, he's just a slightly more skilled CJ Sapong, which will bring nightmares back to TFC fans from last year. A couple of quick things, guys, before we
Mm.
jump into the overrunners and sort of wrap up this game. One, just a couple of stats. Congratulations, if he's already gotten a ton of congratulations on this, to Jonathan Osorio, 300 MLS appearances.
Oh yeah.
Which is just an incredible feat. Saturday marked 11 years to the day of his first TFC appearance, which I think we were all at the Rogers Center against Sporting Kansas City. So that's just incredible, and he got to do it as captain, which is amazing. Quick shout out for you guys. Who would be your man of the match day for TFC? Me, I am going to go with Lorenzo Insigne. Sometimes, I don't try to always go with the obvious. Today, the game breaker, I'm gonna have to go with the obvious. Is Lorenzo Insigne for me.
Jeff, what you got?
I don't know. I kind of want to be hipster and go Gavrin because
No, I don't think that's
he
hipster. I think
inspired
it's right.
absolutely no
I think
faith in his appearances last season. I think he gave up he conceded 4 goals every game. He was in net or something stupid
I don't
like
know.
that.
That was so much on him.
Yeah, well, I mean, still, it certainly didn't inspire confidence, and now I have a completely different view of the player. So I'm gonna maybe give it to Gavrin because Oh, it's tough. Lorenzo was amazing, and that was stupid. I think I got to give it to Lorenzo. I think I got to give the man his flowers.
You almost talked yourself into it.
I would have,
Mhm.
yeah, I would not have minded the Luka Gavin show. I think he, like I said, he did everything he needed to do and didn't really step a foot wrong aside from maybe one clearance, which wasn't the greatest. But overall, to be
Mhm.
able to step in that situation, uh, 10 out of 10 performance. Honorable mention to Federico as I sent off the top. I'm gonna go Nixon Gomez.
That's
This
fair.
guy looks
Wow.
at 21 years old like a everyday starter for Toronto FC already if he played the way like he did, I think on Saturday. Like I said, there are moments where he picked up possession, he drove forward, he looked like a guy who was, reading the game well. I thought he was a lot more comfortable on the ball than he was, in his first performance and first outing for TFC, and looks very much like a two-way threat. And I say that because
Mm.
when you play that left center back position, you need to have a bit of that Shane O'Neill in you, where you're very much
Yeah.
a solid defender first. So he showed that he could be, and then two, I think you need to show something a little bit more going forward. And I think again, Gomez did that. So yeah, for me, I thought he, even listening to people around me, they were like, "Who is that guy? That guy looks so good." He was very much an eye opener for a lot of TSC fans. So I'll give it to Nixon Gomez for his home BMO
Fair.
Field debut.
And also, I'm gonna give shout out to Nixon Gomez and that fro. Hair product on tight. That fro's tight. Pick that out real well. Keep growing that thing. I want a player in this league that's got like a big old 70s fro. Just go for it. All right. So after every game, obviously we get press conferences. One of the things that we're really
Mm.
enjoying right now is John Herdman and his just spinning a good yarn about Toronto FC. And we're going to jump into our favorite Herdisms of the week. This segment is called Herd is the Word.
Can I see that paper for a sec? Huh, that's odd. What are you talking about? Oh, have you not heard? Heard what? Heard the word. Heard the word. Don't you know about the herd? Surfing!
Anything can happen in football these days.
All the new people
All
that
right.
have just started watching the show are just like, what just happened there? Don't worry.
What just happened? The best thing just happened. All right. I'm going to go first. And I don't remember what I chose because I chose it a while back. So let's just roll the clip.
It just takes time. It will take time. I imagine a result tomorrow, won't solidify that trust with people, but it'll keep moving in the right direction. This is a team that's finished sort of bottom of the league's last 3 years, It takes time. Having been a Newcastle United fan, it doesn't take a couple of wins to get back on side with your club, your team. You got to earn it. So
There is no press
Now I
conference
remember.
where Newcastle doesn't come up with it.
Yeah, now I remember why I chose it. I chose it, one, because it kind of felt like he was talking directly to me, like, one win's not going to bring you back, Nesker, and then went into the Newcastle United thing, which I just think is so hilarious. Mike, you're very slowly getting the assignment, but, Singh and I, we both chose things that are under a minute. Your shout, however, is a little bit longer, so
Yeah, fair
notes
enough.
towards
Get
next week.
comfortable.
Here's Newell's Get Comfortable.
I didn't realise he was that heavy. He nearly took us right off my bloody feet. It was amazing. I said today would be a tough game. They're a very direct team, direct second phase. You've got to fight for everything. Two strong forwards. But proud of the lads. I thought they put a shift in again, and our quality came through. We have got that quality, and to do well in MLS, you need your DPs performing at that level, and Lorenzo certainly came up trumps today. But for me, you've got to talk about next man up. Luka Gavin made a big save. He didn't have much to do, but he made one big save that kept us in the game. And then you think, as Sigurd Rosted, long he's had to go out at half time, and Big Sigs has come in, and I thought we did well second half with him sort of managing that back line. So all in all, the fans, got to mention them. I think you could feel it was on a knife edge, and I knew this was that game. It's not a game where they open up like the New York Cities or Atlantas. They just stay tight in a shell and play that direct style. So the fans stuck with us.
Yeah,
Big stick.
that was mine.
I
It was
liked
a bit
it.
long. I agree. Just for two things out of that. One, the fact that Short Kings United was shouted out at the beginning there. And then obviously the second there, just talking a little bit about the fans and just that sort of things were on a knife's edge. You could feel it before the Lorenzo goal where people were just kind of trying to will the ball into the net. I definitely could feel that in the stand. So that's why I picked it.
There you go. I thought you picked it just for that little cheeky bit off the top. Here's Mike Singh's shout for the week.
Do you get a lot of texts from Lorenzo? And if so, can you give us a sense of what the back and forth is about?
Yeah, well, I'm wearing his perfume at the moment, so that you need to ask him about that one. So that's something that yeah, we've had some fun.
That's perfect. I mean, it wins. That's perfect. That's why we
assignment.
You got
that's why we started this. That's why we started.
So can we outline the rules here? Let's outline the rules. Is it supposed to be shortest, punchiest John Herdman quote that kind of jumps out to us? It doesn't have to be, context is irrelevant here. Is that kind of what we're going for?
That seems to be the way that it's going. Think of a motivational poster, and if he says something that belongs on it, that's what we want.
There's footprints in the sand when he says it.
However, if you're going to go long, there is a certain power in that. Just understand the power that you're wielding. It all has to be golden. This thing is morphing into exactly what I wanted it to be. Everybody agrees. I'm telling you, number 3 is the winner this year.
There you go.
And it's
well
going
done,
to be
Singh.
this year. I mean, it might be the winner for the whole year.
All right, let's keep track because I feel like I'm going to take this one home.
Oh,
okay.
really?
Well,
okay.
Newell won week 1.
I won last week.
And Singh won.
That was preseason, so doesn't.
No,
that
was open. That was MLS's back. You got match week 2. Congratulations.
No, I'm only counting the 2 weeks because you guys really effed it up on week 1. So I'm only counting.
Before we get into over-unders, quickly, Matty Longstaff's debut for Toronto FC. We didn't really touch on it too much. As you guys mentioned, the ovation that erupted at BMO Field for Matty Longstaff kind of signifies the magnitude of the signing and how it resonates with a wider footballing audience here in Toronto. So that part was really cool. What do you think of his game? He played about 30-40 minutes in his debut. What do you guys think? Mike, let's start with you.
A lot of energy, obviously, sort of as advertised, right? A guy who's going to buzz around the pitch, a lot of energy. The passes he made, you could see the quality in terms of some of the balls he played. He actually made a really great run into the box. I can't remember which minute it was, but Federico had basically got on his left foot and was trying to do his sort of dance at the top of the box or just inside the box. If he had either looked up or had more of a right foot, would have actually played Matty Longstaff in. But it was a very intelligent run that could have opened up something. So you can see in those moments, one, energy, closing down, kind of similar to Davy Flores, but probably a little bit more controlled. Definitely the range of passing is there. It will get better as he gets fitter and as he gets more used to the team. And then intelligence, right? Like just his ability to read games and sort of be in the right places at the right times. And obviously he got that one shot off, which it looks like, if he gets something clean with no one in the way to block it, he's going to have an absolute rocket on him for a shot.
100%.
Yeah, Jeff, what do you think?
Tidy player. Head's on a swivel. Eyes are in the back of his head. He's always checking his shoulders. Always. It's habitual, and I love to see that. I mean, that's why his positioning was so good. He's got. You can tell this kid's got pedigree. In the same reason why I love Alonso Cuejo. You can instantly tell that he's got the silky Spanish midfielder gene. And I was really impressed with Matty Longstaff. I don't think he put a foot out of place. And like I said, just watching him operate and how he was consistently checking his shoulder, consistently making sure his positioning was right was really good to see. And I like the fact that this is something that he can impart to some of the younger young guns on the team.
I think he's a super old veteran. He's only 23.
Well,
Yeah.
he's got that
got
Premier
experience.
League experience. Ha-cha-cha-cha. So,
It does serve as a nice reminder about the differences between
mhm,
a player who has played in the Premier League versus a player who's come up through an MLS academy. It's
Or
little
college
things like
system.
you just
yeah.
said, Jeff, like checking
mhm,
your shoulder after every pass you receive, the way that you shape your body to open up, and most like for
mhm,
me, the biggest thing is your first touch. Like
Mhm.
day and night, how much different your
Day and
first
night.
touch is,
Yeah.
and your ability
Yeah.
to play a ball first time for someone who's been developed overseas than here in domestically. And it's not a knock for players domestically. It's more so just
mhm,
commending just how much pedigree there is from someone who's come over from the Premier League. And
100%.
20,
Yeah.
yeah,
The pace is so
yeah.
much faster. It's like the game's in slow motion to him. Do you know what I mean? And that's pretty awesome.
And that was one of the things with Federico and Lorenzo, right? Adjusting to your teammates here in Major League Soccer and players who don't necessarily see the game at the pace
Yeah.
that they see the
100%.
game. I do wonder if Matty Longstaff was brought in with that in mind, where he's a guy who sees the game at similar pace as Lorenzo and Federico, and can maybe bring a little bit more of that element than a guy who played a similar role, let's say in Mark Anthony Kay last year, right? I think
Yeah.
there's a difference in the way that they see the game in the middle of the park. Matty Longstaff, 28 minutes played, uh, 28 touches. He completed 22 of 24 passes, so 92% of his passes. He had one key
Woo-wee!
pass leading to an assist, actually. So congratulations on your
Mhm.
first assist in Major League Soccer on that Lorenzo
Hockey
Insigne
assist.
screamer.
Yeah.
How's that for a nice little present from Lorenzo? Eh? That's a good way
Yeah.
to welcome
Mhm.
a new teammate. I'll get you going. I'll get you on the board. But yeah, and if you take a look at his heat map, Matty Longstaff, it's literally every like corner of the pitch. He
That's what I
was
meant.
Mhm.
everywhere, buzzing, all over the park. So yeah, it'll be nice to see how he develops here, and as he becomes more fit, just what type of role Matty Longstaff plays for Toronto FC.
We know the role Matty Longstaff plays. He's going to sit on the bench and talk about Newcastle United and Alan Shearer with John Herdman for 4 hours before every game. That's why they brought him in, and don't doubt it. Yeah. Over unders.
All right, let's roll into these over 2024 over unders, continuing from
Cool.
last week. Again, more data acquired this weekend, but Mike Singh's going to walk us through 5 more players on the roster and see where we're going to go
Limber up.
horribly wrong with their predictions.
Yeah, so if you're new to this, you'll catch up very quickly. By the way, if you're new and you're watching, hit that subscribe button. All right, last time I'll say that.
No, say
So
it
let's start with-
more. There's hundreds of reasons.
Start with Richie Larea. So I have his over under for this entire season at 1.5 PKs won.
Over.
So will Richie
Over!
Larea win
Over, my
at
God.
least 2 PKs? I mean, context is key. Context is important here.
Mhm.
So Richie won last season 3 with Vancouver, 1 with Toronto FC. He won just 1 in 2022, 1 in 2021, and 1 in 2020. So he had that close shout in the first game. It's not necessarily something he goes over every year, but maybe if he's playing more of an attacking position, he'll hit that over. So, Mike, you say over. He'll win at least 2 penalties this year for TFC.
Yeah, he almost won one. Like 2 minutes into his return. He's gonna win at least 2 penalties this year. And look, will he be legit? One will probably be legit. One will be border. But he gets in the box and guys get afraid to touch him. Like, you can now see it. He's got a reputation. And that may be the one thing that hinders this, is that referees now know, at least in the league, know that he has the reputation to go over in the box and be able to
go down
create
a little
things.
bit easily.
No, they're all freelancers. They have no idea. It'll be fine. He's going to get penalty kicks before Pro renegotiates, so we'll be good.
You're over, Jeff, as well?
I'm smashing that over. I mean,
Yeah.
I've destroyed the button.
Yeah, he does. Like you said, he has a little bit of a reputation. It was much worse when he first joined TFC. I think in 2019 season, he was going over every time he was in the box, and now he stays on his feet a little bit more. He led the league in MLS in fouls drawn last season before at least his loan was up from TFC, and that is super rare for a fullback to be in that position where you draw so many fouls. It's just kind of the way that Richie protects the ball, how unafraid he is to kind of get into it. Now, will that translate into the box? Will he play a higher role with TFC? That remains to be seen. I'm gonna go under. I don't see TFC drawing penalties this year. If there's gonna be someone, it's gonna be Richie. It just numbers wise, historically, it's not on TFC's side. He's only done 1 in 2022, 1 in 2021, and 1 in 2020. So
he's getting better at it though, like in a sense that not like diving, but like more in a sense that when he gets in the box, I think he has a better idea, like you said, of protecting the ball and being able to shift it really quickly last minute, right?
Definitely.
Be able to suck a defender in to try to challenge for the ball, and he's able to pull it back really quickly and draw those fouls. So I think he'll at least get 2.
Yeah, fair. What if I set that over under 2.5? Would you say
Over.
he'd get 3?
3 might be tough, only because again the reputation thing.
I should have done it 2.5 to stump you guys a little bit better, but it's all good. We have our numbers in. Let's move on to Raul Petretta, who is having, like I said, I think a really strong start to the season. Really settling into a bit of a role for TFC in this system, creating that relationship alongside the left-hand side with Lorenzo Insigne. So I'm setting his over-under at 2.5 assists. So for context, Raul Petretta had 2 assists last season. He had 1 assist in 2022 and 3 assists in 2021. And those 2 were obviously before TFC. So in Europe. What do you guys say? Jeff, let's start with you. Over-under 2.5 assists for Raul Petretta.
Over. Although Turts is saying under, so now I want it. No, over. It's Petretta season. It's Petretta assist season.
Mike?
Under. And mainly it's, again, I think he's going to be that third kind of center back, if you want to call it that. And I think it just provides less opportunity potentially to provide assists.
Is he going to be that third
Well,
center?
yeah, that's a good question. I mean, Nixon Gomes is sort of stepping into that role as well. So it's a possibility that he can go back out on the left. I'm still going to go under, though.
Yeah, I'm gonna go over. I think Raul Petretta has more to show offensively than what we've seen from him so far. And if he blossoms on that left hand side alongside Lorenzo Insigne, I think they can pulse him up. So let's go over.
All right.
Yep. Suck it, Turts.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about him a little bit already. Prince Owusu, TFC's, one of their best number 9s right now. So I don't know if this is a little high looking at it, but I'm just the biggest believer in Prince Owusu. So I'm setting his over under at 4.5 goals this season in all competitions. So for context, his 0.43 XG is second on Toronto FC this season, only behind Federico Bernardeschi. He had 10 goals playing in Germany last season in the German second division. He only had 2 in 22, but he played in only half the games there. So he's got some kind of goal scoring touch we just haven't seen yet at Toronto FC. Yeah, what do we think? Are we saying over or under 4.5 goals? Will he get 5 goals this year, Mike Newell?
Yeah, this is a tough one you've now got because I can see both sides potentially. I am going to go under. I just think that, like you said earlier, I think they will go out and try to bring in a more established number 9, which would eat up minutes. Now, could he maybe get 4 before that happens? I can see a world where that exists, but I'm going to go on the right now, and the right now says under.
Jeff?
I'm going to go over. Because I'm an idiot. No, I'm gonna go over because I feel like maybe, just maybe, he might figure it out. There's enough games before the summer transfer window. 4.5, like 5 goals it's not terrible.
It's a tough one.
I'm going over.
I'm like the biggest hypocrite right now. I'm gonna go under.
If you say under,
I'm the biggest hypocrite.
Oh my
I'm
goodness!
Going under.
Wow, I got Mike Zinged again.
But
the man,
the
chairman of the Prince Owusu fan club.
Yeah.
He does.
Again.
No, he does a lot of good stuff besides just scoring goals. But yes, we need him to put some goals in the back of the net. It just his track record at TFC and MLS doesn't give me much hope that he'll put in 5. But maybe he gets like a hot run towards the end of the season. Gives us some hope into next year. Get a little
I'm watching this
settled.
one closely because this is my Jeffy gloat one. So yeah, I'm watching this.
That's
one.
the one that gets clipped in October.
You know it.
All right, Latif Blessing, kind of a
Who?
forgotten soldier right now at Toronto FC.
Crazy.
So I said his over under for minutes played for TFC this season at 550 minutes. He just logged 152 in 4 appearances last season, battled some injuries, a lot of various reasons for that. So will Latif Blessing log over 550 minutes for TFC?
Who are you going
Jeff,
with first?
you want to start?
All signs point to no. I mean, right now, all signs point to no. And we keep getting new players blocking him from getting any minutes. I got to go under. I don't think it's fair. I got to go under on this one.
Mike?
Trying to think how many games will he maybe get into before the summer transfer window opens.
Exactly.
I will go under, and I will go under just simply because I think he's trade bait in MLS. He's a player with a lot of experience in this league, pedigree, teams know him, and he's one of the few players that you would give up that has value in the league. So I could see a situation where he gets traded for allocation money and TFC try to do something in the summer with that. Or maybe even, who knows, maybe even before the window closes in April, right? There's a lot of time still before this window closes, the quote unquote primary window closes. So I could see a situation where he gets moved. So I will say under.
How old is he? Do we know offhand?
29? Something like that?
Is that it? I don't think he's that old.
28 maybe?
I'll tell you guys in a
Sorry,
second.
not
He's
20,
20. He's 27 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
So
I mean, it wasn't that long ago where this guy was the guy that was breaking out at LAFC.
Exactly.
He was converted from a winger to a central midfielder, really found a role, was a super important player for one of the best MLS teams of all time. And then his career has kind of fizzled out since, couldn't find his footing in New England, gets traded to Toronto in a pretty fairly significant trade for Mark Anthony Kaye. I mean, this guy's not on a cheap salary number and either. So there is a player there somewhere. It's just, how exactly do you get the best out of him? And is it even worth it given the way that other players on the roster are playing? We've seen, early on that, Kosi Thompson and Jaquil Marcheretti are ahead of this guy on John Herdman's depth chart already. So for me, I'm under as well. I think it's gonna be tough for Latif to get minutes. And I'm with you, Mike. I think he is a prime candidate to get traded if anyone will be willing to take him on. Okay.
Of all the players, just quickly before we talk about Io getting traded and other players that may be on there, he's the one that MLS teams will take a flyer on because they know his performances in MLS, right? They know he can do a role in the league. So I think if there's anybody that you're pretty like, some team should come in for him, it would be Latif Blessing.
Yeah. There were some rumors floating around about Austin being interested. I'm not sure what to make of those rumors, but again, it comes down to how much of the cap TFC are willing to hit, how much of that cap hit, I think, because I'm not sure teams would be willing to take a flyer on a guy who's making 600,000.
Yeah,
that's true.
Hasn't really played good football for the last year and a half, but I digress. Last one for this one, and we'll do some more next episode. Brandon Cervania, again, a guy who came over, was really promising in his first couple of appearances, kind of fizzled out as the year went on. And then he, of course, suffers pretty significant injury, tears his ACL. He goes under surgery on October 5th. So I'm setting his over-under for June 1st being his first appearance back for Toronto FC. So will he come back before June 1st? All signs point to him being ahead of schedule. The typical timeline for an ACL is roughly 9 months after surgery. Now that is a normal timeline, and that would be technically July 1st or July 5th if we're being really technical there, how far past surgery is 9 months is. So will he come back before June 1st or will he make an appearance after June 1st?
Newells?
I'll say I'll go before on June 1st. I think there's a possibility that could happen. Fixture congestion may also sort of, I'm saying necessitate it. I don't think they're going to rush him back or anything like that.
Yeah,
but
that's
the
my
time
feeling.
June 1st comes around, you're starting to play 2 games a week almost every week. Especially if you think this team's going to progress in the Voyageurs Cup. So I'll put it on or before June 1st. I'll take that.
Jeff?
I want to say after, but Mike Newell brings up an interesting point. How often now have we heard Herdman talk about this season in 3 phases and telegraphing that there's going to be fixture congestion ahead? So I think their plan is to have him ready when that happens, which is before your cutoff here. So I'm actually gonna say before. I think they want to have him ready to get some minutes when the S hits the fan.
Yeah, so like I said, all signs have indicated that he's ahead of schedule. I'm still gonna go after because we've seen Toronto FC play it really cautious when it comes to injuries so far this year. They have a very long-term vision when it comes to that. So even like a guy like Sean Johnson picks up a little knock, had this been later in the year, could he have probably played through that? Perhaps. Same thing, Kevin Long. Could he have potentially played through that if it was a bigger stakes game? Yeah. Lorenzo Insigne, we know what's going on with his load management. So I think the team is going to err on the side of caution for all of these injuries. But in general, what a nice piece it is to have Brandon Cervania now as kind of a, your 3rd central midfielder, 4th central midfielder. I guess, yeah, 4th if you include now Matty Longstaff, Davy Flores, and Alonso Coelho. Jonathan Osorio you can put in that mix too.
Latif Blessing, in theory, we just talked about him.
Who?
Yeah. Kosi Thompson getting more minutes in there in the midfield. So adding Cervania, we talk about depth of this team a lot. If he can come back and he could be the player that he was before, still very young, 24, 25 years old. I remember a guy who had a ton of pedigree, trained at Bayern Munich. A lot of potential. We haven't seen the best out of him quite yet. So hopefully he comes back stronger and makes an impact for this team.
100%.
All right, that wraps up our over-unders for this episode. We'll
got to
come
make
back next
this stinger
week
for next week.
with 5 more players that we'll be having over-unders on next week. All right, let's moving to this week. We dropped that burning question for you, so let's roll into the burning question. All right, the burning question. We asked you on Twitter, has your outlook on TFC's season changed after the first 3 games? And obviously, we talked about it at the beginning of the show. Jeff sang a song about it. Vibes are positive. Vibes are strong.
Don't remind me.
Amongst the fan group. So Kimbo Rice just writing in, during preseason, I thought TFC had raised the floor, but not the ceiling. I knew they wouldn't win the wooden spoon again, but play-in was the ceiling. With Longstaff, Long, and Gomes, the ceiling now is the playoffs. With a DP striker, ceiling could be home advantage for the playoffs. We're already talking about now moving into the top 4
MLS Cup,
spots in the Eastern Conference after 3 games. All right, Kimbo, like the optimism there. Jez says, I thought we'd make the playoffs before Cincinnati or the opening game of the season. I feel the exact same. We'll finish 5th or 6th. That would be a solid placing in the playoffs and give you a good place going into the 3-game series. It's still stupid, but whatever. James O'Halloran just writes in, cautiously yes, but not fully trusting yet. I think that speaks to what we were talking about earlier about how is this sustainable long term in terms of the way that they're picking up results now. And lastly, Greg Finley just writes in, not yet. I thought playoffs were a reasonable goal and still believe that's the case. More that what's required now is improved offense, which we haven't seen yet. I think next year is our year. So Greg, taking a little bit more of a cautious approach to this.
No.
Okay,
Greg.
Go ahead, Jeff. Tell them.
We're all in on this ride. You bought the ticket, you take the ride. Leagues Cup, baby. MLS champions, Club World Cup champions. Hell, UEFA Champions League champions. Why not?
Yeah. As you can see, everybody, Jeff has taken the Herdman juice and is all in.
Mhm.
I'm kind
Why
of
do you have to call it the Herdman juice? That's so gross.
Yeah, I know. I instantly regret that.
Now I don't
but
want
hey,
it anymore.
Yeah,
Mhm.
don't clip that, or maybe clip it. I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, we're totally clipping that.
But yeah, I'm kind of with Greg a little bit. Like, I don't think we have to wait to next year necessarily, but I do believe that, I'm enjoying this right now. Just enjoy. Just don't overthink it. Enjoy it now.
Just don't think at all. Just
it's
stop
7
thinking.
points. It's 7 points out of your first 3 games. We haven't conceded a goal yet. There are 4 other teams that are on 7 points in the league right now. And Miami just lost their first game, and we were on the same points as Montreal. So from that perspective, a lot better than I think any of us could have dreamed of before the season started.
Better.
So kind of enjoy it, and then we'll kind of see where this team evolves. I think they got a winnable game this weekend against NYCFC. So
Soon to be managerless.
I think it's going to be even tougher. You're going to Yankee Stadium against an NYCFC team who is going to be so desperate and so hungry to fix things. So, TFC had done a really good job at being able to match or exceed the intensity levels of their opposition. This is a different game. You're going to have to raise your intensity level to a new standard because you're playing a team that's so desperate, that has high expectations, and you're playing in the baseball stadium, the smaller field where it's less of it's less of a skilled game and more of a battle in the heart of the park. So it's gonna be quite the test, actually.
But
I think, for Toronto
we have just said throughout this entire show that Toronto
we have
FC,
Davey Flores.
Well, yeah, right. Like they're more up for a battle than they've ever been, right, in the last couple of years.
Different level.
So definitely not going to be the most silky, skilled game in the world. Maybe you're not necessarily playing Insigne the entire time on that pitch, even though it's grass. But I think that's a game where you can go in and kind of go in with the road mentality that they've had so far this season, and try to make another result.
That doesn't work at Yankee Stadium. The turbo pitch. It doesn't work that you always see these 5-4 games, these insane score lines at Yankee Stadium. So I really don't know what to expect and how Herdman's going to prepare them guys. Because this is, you want to talk about the nuances of being an MLS coach and, the difference between being an international manager and a club manager. It's moments like these where you have to go to a stadium like Yankee Stadium and completely throw your game plan out of the pitch, right? Like, Let's see if they can map it out, play a different style of game. Like it's going to be different than their first 3 games. So it's a big test, I think, this weekend. Like you said, NYCFC, they're winless. Nick Cushing is completely under his seat is on fire. There is, there's already talks of potentially them changing their manager. Keaton Parks is coming out, calling out, his teammates and the way that they're playing, calling out the coach,
calling out the manager, and then Cushing called him out. Yeah. They're reminding me of
sounds
something.
familiar.
I put my finger on it, but
it's something. It's something there. So it'll be an interesting fixture at New York this weekend. And just circling back to like where this team is right now. Are we buying the stock? I'm not there yet. It's 3 very positive results. Football wise, we still haven't seen the best football from this team with the ball. Without the ball, we've definitely improved our defensive structure, but our defensive structure was still good at times last season, and results bounce here, bounce there, don't go your way. Then all of a sudden you find yourselves in a downward spiral. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen with this team. I think John Herdman and Robin Gale and everyone else behind the scenes there has put in too much work to let it spiral like that. But I do believe that they're overexceeding and overperforming at their expectations by a large margin. So, and we'll see how it plays out. I hope I'm wrong. I'm not buying the stock quite yet. We got to figure it out offensively for me to be a bit more invested.
No,
I'm
that's
saving you
fair.
a spot on the Herdman Express, boys.
Yeah, I mean, I like Herdman. I think he's
Yeah.
done a fantastic job, as I mentioned earlier in the episode. I think
But
he's
I
the
think-
biggest reason.
Yeah, I think the difference, Mike and Jeff, you actually pointed out this a lot earlier in the show, was that I think this is a side that from a fan base perspective and from watching this team, you're going to be okay if sometimes those bounces don't go your way, if that team is fighting like hell the way that they've been fighting these 3 games. Right. I think
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
season, though the defensive performance at the beginning of the season were okay and you were getting draws and kind of keeping yourself in the game, those games you never felt like that team you always felt like that team was one little extra punch away from just being like, well, this is done. Right.
Yeah.
You don't feel that this year. And I think that's the change more
Yeah,
than,
that's a good
yes,
point.
of course, the results,
Yeah.
obviously 7 points in your first 3 games is great. But I think that's the biggest change. And that's why people are, I think, buying more stock into TFC now than probably they would have. Let's even say if they with a win and 2 draws, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Very, very fair point.
Before we wrap up, just want to give all our listeners, again, thank you for all the new listeners that have come on to the show tonight to listen into us for an hour and 20 minutes, ramble about our favorite football club. We really appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully you'll come back for more shows. Just a programming note for everybody out there. We will have Andrew Lee from Hudson City Blue, their website, great website that covers NYCFC. We hope to do a little sort of 3-question preview show with them this week. So we hope to drop that prior to the NYCFC game, a little pregame primer for you all. And then it seems like you guys liked the quick little primer video we did, even though I was 1x speed and
we're doing that forever. I can't wait.
So we'll do more of those
Yeah.
for sure. So thank you everybody for the great response, even for the laughs too. I have no problem being laughed at from time to time.
The
All
clean
right.
sheet one destroyed me.
The clean sheet one was
Absolutely
great.
destroyed me.
Yeah,
Destroyed
that was
me.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to another Toronto Till I Die episode. Follow us on Instagram. If you haven't already, find us at TTID Show or just search Toronto Till I Die. You'll find us on there. Give us a follow. Plus, if you haven't already, as Mike has already mentioned a couple times in the show, subscribe here on YouTube. If you are listening to us on the podcast version, search Toronto Till I Die wherever you get podcasts. Please like and review the show as well. But for Michael Singh, for Jeffrey P. Nesker, I'm Mike Newell. We'll see you next week. Cheers, everybody.
Peace.
And wait, and baby, I'm TFC till I die.